Hello. Hey, Barbara again. Roslan again. Hola. Hi. I feel that we've made really strong friendships throughout the day and all the sessions that we see each other, right? So happy to see you again. Hi. Workshop marathon. Yes, it's happening. Hello, Frank. Welcome. Welcome, everyone. Hey, hola. Germany is represented already quite strongly in this call. Yes, whoop, whoop. All right. So as we warm up and we are having people signing up their mics and their cameras, I would like to welcome everyone and thank you for joining us. My name is Ana Maria, in case we haven't met before, and I'm the community manager here at Butter. So I am leading this awesome project of building a community for facilitators, workshoppers, designers, consultants all over the world to get together and share. Butter is a all-in-one tool that helps you run high-energy collaborative sessions with ease. I do have to mention that the session will be recorded and shared on YouTube and with the Butter community. Full disclaimer there, and I am so excited to have the honor to learn more about the power of community for facilitators from our 4 amazing panelists who we deeply admire, and you will see in a moment why we deeply admire in case you're not yet following their work. So allow me to pull into the spotlight Robert.
Hello.
There you go.
Hey.
Hi. Robert is the creator of the Global Virtual Design Sprint. It's an international online community of facilitators, designers, researchers who explore ideas, products, and services in a collaborative environment. Welcome, Robert. It's great to have you here with us.
Yeah, thank you for having me on the panel. I'm really looking forward to the conversation. I'm looking forward to a lot of listening because I love getting perspectives, especially from the other panelists. So thank you very much for having me here.
Our pleasure. All right, and then let's welcome Daniela. And Daniela is a senior trainer, facilitator, and business coach, and one of the core team members of Remote Facilitators Cafe. It's an online community which brings together facilitation resources and great people during their weekly sessions happening on Mondays at 10 Central European Time clock. It's like a clock, like a Swiss clock. Daniela, it's a pleasure to have you with us today as well. Hello.
Thank you very much for inviting me and the Facilitator Cafe, since I'm the representative of this open community. Looking forward to the exchange.
Beautiful. Adam, let me pull you onto the stage as well. Hello.
Hi.
Hi. Adam is the co-founder of Workplay Experience, a company which helps organizations worldwide change how their staff, partners, and customers work together to discover and create value. In 2010, he co-initiated the world's biggest service innovation event, and I'm pretty sure you've all heard about the Global Service Jams. And he's also the co-founder of the Co-Creation Schools, which hosts awesome community for facilitators. And Adam, we're really happy to have you here with us.
I'm really pleased to be here, and it's really great to be in a context like this one, which is making online work a lot less sucky. So thank you for that.
Awesome. And Douglas. Welcome, Douglas. And Douglas is an entrepreneur and a human-centered technologist, as well as the founder and president of Voltage Control. I've been a huge fan for years. It's an Austin-based change agency that helps enterprises start, accelerate, and sustain innovation. From their free weekly community meetups to the Control the Room, which is their annual facilitation summit, Voltage Control is building a community for facilitators to change the world. Doesn't that sound amazing? Douglas, it's wonderful to have you.
Topics, which is community. And, I've been building communities for many years, even before I even realized I was building communities. And I think it all started from, attending local, stew cooks and potlucks with my mom and the local country community where I grew up. And there's just a love for bringing people together and uniting around shared values. So I'm really excited about this conversation and this amazing panel you put together.
I know. I'm also kind of mind blown. I'm super happy that you guys accepted and made time in your busy schedule to be with us today. And for the participants and everyone attending, we have prepared some hopefully interesting questions for our panelists today. And we are going to reserve 15 minutes at the end of the session for your questions. So make sure that you take note of them and keep them in mind. And when we can queue at the end of the session and throw all those questions at them and see what comes back. So I, with no further ado, because I like to talk and it's not about me today, we are super amazed by the great impact that all of your communities have on the overall facilitation crafts and the overall facilitation world. So we would love to hear some secrets behind your successes. So to kick it off, could you briefly tell us what your communities are about? How have they came to be, and where are they now? And I'm going to pass the virtual mic to Adam. And Adam, would you like to start with this question?
Thanks. I guess I'm here for lots of communities because you mentioned my work as well as my nonprofit, the Global Jams, and in our work, we're often trying to build communities of practice inside organizations. But I'm going to talk about the Jam more because anyone can join it. It's accessible and it's very representative. Maybe the volume is turned down a little bit or the color is a bit different, but it's the same sort of vibe in organizations that we do. And communities for me, I come from theater, and communities have a lot to do with a safe space. In theater, we say a safe space is a place where you have a mental and physical space in which you can mess up. Yeah. And if we're going to learn together, we have to do things not so well, or as well as we want to. And that can be scary. And it can be very important to have a community around you who can help you through that. And if you like the kind of one thread which joins together all my work in communities, is the idea of let's take the problem seriously and let's not take ourselves too seriously. Yeah. Because so many struggles come up when you're always trying to be perfect and trying to show the right side of yourself and not let yourself be human. And so we use things like, rubber chickens and so on to remind ourselves to be human and to remind ourselves not to take ourselves seriously while taking the problem seriously, taking the user seriously, the citizen, whatever it is.
Hopefully that's enough non-serious. We hope the rubber chicken agrees to the applause. Thank you so much, Adam. Daniela, tell us about your community.
Well, our community is fairly new. It's called the Facilitator Cafe. It was created last year in March when everybody's facilitator, coaches, trainers agenda was totally wiped clean by COVID. So what happened, it was initiated by Nadia, a good friend and colleague, and she activated her network, her friends, and said, okay, let's meet online and basically comfort each other, cry on each other's shoulders. And that actually led to slowly but surely a growing community where people check in every Monday morning at 10 o'clock. It's an open house. You can come in. The link is on LinkedIn, where we started then not to comfort each other, but to learn from each other. We all have different backgrounds. We have all different methods, different specialities. For example, my big thing is I'm a digital educational person. I have a master's in digital education. I've been in e-learning for 20 years, and I've been profoundly grateful to COVID that it has forced people to look at e-learning from slightly different perspective, right? So I share what I know about e-learning, and I know and absorb from other people what they know about mural tools, game-based learning, about tools that we can use to collaborate. So it's a community of practice in essence. And it's sort of, if you look at it from an academic point of view, a community of practice, it's something that exists since forever. Yeah? The master with the learner to each other. So we are sitting together and learning from each other. And that's really fascinating because it's amazing how much you can learn in 1 hour from people all around the world.
Yes, that's what we're experiencing today as well. Each session is different, but by the end of the session, everyone takes one piece of insight with them. Thank you so much, Daniela. Douglas.
Yeah, I echoed some of Daniela's points around, bringing folks together to learn and grow, and and confront some of our fears. We're a community of practice as well, and we have this strong belief that practice makes practice, and so often there's a lack of opportunity to put in that practice and get the confidence you need before standing up in front of the CEO or whoever it is and having to host and run that meeting. So that's why we first started coming together. And even prior to the facilitation lab and the facilitation community we've been doing, I was running a community for CTOs, and I found that out of I would say a very selfish need, because I felt very lonely as a CTO. You get to the top and it's like everyone expects you to have the answers, and it's like no other CTOs in the company. And so bringing them together so that we could ask each other questions and support each other is really, really profound. And I think those lessons just led into wanting to provide that for the facilitation community too.
Thank you so much. And Robert, over to you. Oh, you will have to, there we go.
2 years in. Still have.
Okay, now.
I think now it's
good.
good.
Go. Fine.
Awesome.
So let me take you back to the early October of 2018. And I was asking myself, how do professionals who have gone through the process of learning design sprints actually put it to meaningful practice for their situation? Could there be an event that could offer others the opportunity to try the design sprint process out in real time? Back then, when it was first starting to gain a little bit of popularity, everyone thought that you had to do it in person. That was the mantra. That was, you can't really do any of what we wanted to do with this process of taking an idea all the way to a testable prototype in 5 days. You have to have everybody in the room. I thought that it would be neat to experiment and try out what it could be like if we did it virtual based on all the tools at the time. And I thought it was just going to be 6 people, and it ended up being 60 plus. And we had people from different organizations joining us to experiment in different ideas to see where it would went to. Fast forward to today, 6 events later of the GVDS. And I would say the community isn't one where we go to one Slack channel, though we've tried that, or one website. It's really a group of people that have come to know each other through shared experiences, like testing out ideas and going through process. And I think my goal with the community was more to elevate people to the best professional versions of themselves. Some of them are joining us on the panel, and I can probably take about half the time on the panel to tell you how great they are, because I've had firsthand experience with them. And my whole meaning with community and the GVDS is to advocate for them whenever possible, when it seems appropriate. So that's how the community has kind of progressed in a very quick nutshell over time.
Thank you so much. It's very interesting and at the same time comforting to hear how many of these initiatives started as an experiment. Like, we really don't know what's going to happen. We are not setting ourselves to design something big or something huge, but then they kind of like a snowball developed and had their own. They grew their own feet, right, as we say. So some of your communities are younger. Others are as old as like more than 10 years, right? You're running several sessions and they've reached so many people across the globe. And I guess that my next question relates to this, to the impact. So what's the effect that you have seen that the rise of communities for facilitators have brought into the facilitator world, craft, job in general? And maybe we can start with Daniela this time.
Well, being a facilitator generally is a lone wolf kind of thing. So like what Douglas Wright said, is there the only CTO? Is that the only person? So it's a little bit like you do your thing, you get feedback from your delegates if you're lucky, but you have a hard time to sort of exchange ideas and experiences unless you spend a lot of money and go to get certifications and whatever qualifications and trainings. But it's really hard to sit together with like-minded people who do your stuff and do similar things and sort of experiment and think about what are you doing, how could you do things, how could you maybe change perspective, how could you integrate and expand what you're doing, maybe make it even more fun, more interesting. And again, we're looking a lot at online and virtual delivery, but everything we do, or most of the things we do, can actually also be done in face-to-face situations. So it's not necessarily only the virtual environment. So it's not feeling so lonely anymore, and being part of a group of people where if you need help and if you need an idea and if you need support and if you need to bounce things off them, they're there. And that makes it really, it makes you feel lighter.
Nice. I love that. Thank you so much for sharing. Douglas, how about you? What's the effect that you've seen happening in the world?
When I hear that question, it makes me think of two different extremes. One is within the facilitation community, I feel like the communities are providing opportunities for folks to build confidence in their craft, and confidence is very powerful, right? Because it's put them in positions where they go in asking for that promotion. They go in knowing that they can get this job, and they get it. And we've heard countless stories, testimonials from folks that come back and say, hey, if I hadn't attended these things, I wouldn't have had the confidence to go in and ask for these things or swing for the fences, so to speak. We've even seen the quality of work improve because people realize what's possible and they start changing the nature of their meeting culture. And then that has like ripple effects to the organization. But I think I want to speak at another level as well, which is this kind of meta benefit of facilitation, because I often think about how there are so many people doing amazing work in the world, solving really challenging, really wicked problems. Like there are climatologists that are like out there trying to figure out how we extend this beautiful planet we live on. And I'm not doing that work. But the way I see facilitation playing a role is that we can amplify the efforts of the people that are doing amazing stuff. And so if we can help them get unstuck, help them get unblocked, help them get better work done, then they can go do those amazing things, and we become enablers.
I like that. Thank you so much. Adam, what's your take on this?
Some really good stuff being said already, and I think what I'm experiencing is quite an evolution of understanding of what facilitation means, and that's happening in these communities. Daniela talked about how lonely it can be in that classic role of a facilitator, but for example, at the jams, people are seeing that it's way, way easier to facilitate as a team, to do that together. And that's a luxury at work sometimes. Or is it? Because what we're seeing is a shift also in the boundary between who is the official facilitator and who's a co-facilitator and who's just a participant. As people trust each other more, as it gets easier to run things like this, then we start blurring this quite a lot, and people step into maybe what was a scary limelight and find that they can help, because we're all helping all the time. Every time we help someone into a jacket, we're facilitating. Every time we help someone across the road, we're facilitating. Every time we say, during a conversation, we facilitated right then, and it's really encouraging to see people getting that from each other. We've also seen at the jams, especially, we have this motto of doing, not talking. And we're finding it very interesting, not against talking, of course, but we think there's too much talking in the world and not enough doing, because talking favors certain people who are strong at language, confident in stepping forward, have skills of abstraction and literacy and so on. And there are other people who have great contributions who can contribute by doing. So rather than let's all sit down and talk about something, let's build something together to learn from each other. Let's play something out. Let's play a game to learn from each other. And it's really interesting to see how communities enable that to happen as well. So it's a shift in what the world means that I'm finding so interesting.
Thank you. And of course, I'm curious to hear what Robert thinks about this as well.
Could I ask today that you could repeat the question just so I can directly at it? I've been listening to everyone else and I've got lost in their answers, so I want to make sure I hone in on the original.
My absolute pleasure. Thank you, Cheska, for that dramatic effect in there. So what is the biggest effect that the rise of communities for facilitators in this case have made on the facilitators world or craft or job in general?
I think it's to gain perspective from other people that are currently learning and doing facilitation, both in person and virtual. One of the things that the pandemic forced a lot of people who were very skilled in-person facilitators to do is to redefine how they engage their audiences. Because when you're doing a lot of face-to-face, that's your mode. You basically know the system, or you know your system, you know the process, you know how to basically control a crowd, not to control the room, not going to make that the analogy, but since someone's here that kind of has that, phrase, you're basically used to a certain mode of doing things. Whereas virtual, it is a completely different set of skills, but they are related. So a lot of people had to make that transition. And I saw a lot of questions going on around, this has been my traditional business. How do I kind of get into this field where I can take what I've traditionally done in terms of my services and and what I offer my clients and put it to this new medium? So earlier in the year and even last year, there's just tons of material saying, okay, here's how you make the transition. Here's what you can do. Douglas's Slack channel in particular had some great content around doing this and how to kind of approach this. So I found that with learning from each other in communities around facilitation, it's sharing perspectives and showing people how things are done, different setups, how you get different equipment, how you can purchase different equipment to achieve certain ends. And I think that at a base, the learning that's been going on has been really inspiring and helpful.
Yeah. So I hear a lot of your thoughts, and the examples you're giving are action oriented, right? So it's all about doing, it's about sharing, it's about being there and pulling up your sleeves and actually getting your hands dirty and talk to the people and dare to step out of the comfort zone, right? And I think that if you run a community or if you're an active part of a community, that becomes very clear that the more you give, the more you engage, the more you participate, the more you take, the more you learn, and the more you grow. So I think that by definition, a community's strength comes from the nature of these relationships that members create with each other, the quality of those interactions and exchanges. So I'm wondering in your communities, because some are meeting every single Monday, those people are showing up. Others are rallying hundreds of people on a yearly basis that keep on coming back and they keep on wanting to be there and engage and learn. And my question is, how have you deliberately designed for those relationships within your community to emerge and to happen? And if you could share maybe some concrete examples of activities or tactics that you've tested out, what worked, what didn't work, how did you come about building those relationships? And I would very much like to start with Douglas on this one.
Yeah, I think the building the relationships piece is interesting. But as you're asking the question, I want to come back to something you were kind of poking at there, and just to me, the importance of diversity to keep people interested. Because to Robert's point, everyone's sort of trying to figure out how to transition. And that's an ever evolving need, right? Like, just because COVID hit doesn't mean that's the only time that we have to pivot and we have to think about what the world's throwing at us. It was a big shift, but we're getting a lot of feedback right now that people want to know how to better market themselves. How do they find work? And so we're thinking about how we bring in people into the community that have excelled at that, enjoy it. There's a facilitator I know from also a friend of Robert's, Dana Publicover, who is, I think she might even be speaking at a series of stuff Butter's doing. And it's around
just early
now, focusing her facilitation on sales. And I'm like, oh, that's perfect. Let's bring her in because this is a need they have. So staying really tuned into what people need and what they're longing for is really important. and co-creating it with them. So it's like, I don't really care what cool ideas I might have. It doesn't matter. But as long if I'm not bringing them in and co-creating with them. So I think that's how we get people really, I would say, owning or feeling really connected to something versus trying to sell them some idea and getting buy-in.
Lovely, absolutely. I'm absolutely loving putting an agreement stamp on everything you said. That was very, very insightful. Now, Robert, the Virtual Design Sprint has reached its 6th edition. Was it this year?
Yeah.
And I think that it keeps on. So in terms of attendance, it only keeps on growing. So how have you nurtured those relationships? How are you building that?
So I don't think I have a hand in that. I know that's kind of counterproductive to the question, but I really think that I just provide the space for people to get together and find others that share common interests. I think the event serves as like a commonality for people who are looking for different things. Some are looking to gain some pieces for their portfolio. Others are looking to experiment in the virtual facilitation space. Others are first just starting out with where they are. And I think as long as I provide sort of a somewhat neutral area where I'm encouraging learning, but at the same time, I'm trying to make sure there's a sandbox around expectations of others, that there's a mutual understanding of that everyone's there to basically learn from one another and go through this process and learn about it. And take accountability for things when they go wrong, because I'm the first and last stop for that. Then I think the relationships naturally nurture themselves. I don't think I try to promote that as part of it. I think that's just a natural byproduct. But what I try to do is practice the tenets of servant leadership. So I will be someone that will go the extra mile for different people based on what they ask for. If I have the ability to do so, like I said before, I'll advocate for them. But really, the relationships are a byproduct of the event and a byproduct of people kind of having similar interests. And I see it even after the fact of people getting together. Like Lisa, who's somebody on the panel, recently had a post about, I like to get some people together to basically potentially go on a venture. And I saw a lot of people from the GVDS kind of pipe up and say, hey, if I'd like to be part of this. Those are the kinds of relationships that just came about irregardless, just because of the event, but they on their own merit decided to do that. So I think I'm just basically a platform that helps that, but I don't think I'm responsible for it.
Thank you. Daniela, what's your take on this?
Yeah, I'm totally with what Robert and Douglas said. So that, it's we provide space actually, and we are responsible for the space. So we are an informal, formal, or informally informal kind of thing. So we have some rules, very basic rules. We provide a space, and the interesting part in there is it's a little bit like, imagine when people come in, it's like a circle, right? And there's a new person come in, so we widen the circle, right? So we step back, we make room, we accept new people in, and often they often introduce themselves very quickly. Hi, I'm Daniela, I'm from Italy, I do this, blah, blah, blah. But there is often we find out much later what these people do, who they are, how they manage to find us. And the relationship is actually built while we work together. As I said, it's this community of practice where we learn things from each other. So that typically it would be someone is either introducing something, then we discuss things, or the typical breakout room would be something that we use quite a lot. And the fascinating thing is the relationships go beyond the facilitator cafe, right? So for example, I contact someone, say, listen, I need a little bit of help or a brainstorm for this topic. Someone else contacts me saying, can you help me? My understanding is that you know about this. I need a little bit of help. So our relationship built around that. And we have a lot of diversity as well, because we have people from Iran. So we have a facilitator from Iran who also tells us, well, there are a lot of things I can't do in Iran, right? So and it's really fascinating to see, okay, so what can you, what can't you? And he's actually trying to build a community of practice in Iran with the rules and regulations of this specific culture. we have a person that gets up at 4 o'clock in the morning in Canada to attend every single Monday. So, and that is something that I find extremely inspiring. So we provide the space, we provide the ground rules, we share this a little bit amongst 4 people who have been volunteers on it, but it sort of self-evolves with this benevolent guidance of saying that is interesting or that is not interesting, or let's do this or let's do that. But it's basically self-ruled and self-designed.
Thank you. Adam?
Let's get into that word space a little bit. I'm an actor, and in improvised theater, we talk a lot about freedom within structure. And I think that is incredibly important. People need a level of structure to feel a level of safety, and they need a level of freedom to feel a level of agency. And also because you cannot serve everybody. It's just impossible. We have 7,000 people at the jams. We can't. There are 2 of us and we have no money. Yeah. So what can we do is we can be really, really strong on the structure that we give. For example, in our case, for example, these are the dates. That's it. Can I do another weekend? No, you can't. Well, you can, but it's not part of the jam. You know, this is the theme. No variation. Sorry. That's the game. Yeah. And then other things being incredible. But starve people, actually. You know, people ask us, so what do I do at the jam? We say, I don't know. What do you want? Here's the community. Talk to them. And so that forces people, rather than like coming to us to get spoon-fed, to engage with that community and say, I'm looking for help. And then 5 people give them 5 different ideas. And that's way better than if we give them like the official cut and dried, this is the way to do it. Of course, that pre-selects a certain type of person. People who want more structure don't like that. They go to another event, which is equally awesome, but chooses a different tack. So I think it's really, there's a great quote from Douglas Adams. We want clearly defined areas of doubt and uncertainty. Yeah. And it's a little bit like that. You know, what are the things that we say, right, this is a boundary of the community. If you cross this, we wish you well, and you're now outside. And which are things which are inside the community where we say, do what you like, make something up, do something new, surprise us. That's why we're here.
Yeah. So there was in your answers, there's definitely this common thread of creating the space and then letting those relationships evolve and grow naturally. And I was really happy that you shared also some of the stories where people took the community power and took that space, and they took whatever it is that they build there and they take it a step forward without necessarily needing your approval or without necessarily waiting for someone to create those opportunities for them, right? And that, I think that's the fascinating things about community, that once you put them out there, they will start to grow. And I know as a community builder how big of an impact nurturing such a community can have on your own development. So my next question to you is, how have your involvement within communities impacted your professional life and also your personal life? And maybe we can start with Robert.
Man. How have these communities impacted my personal and professional life? I mean, they've impacted in every way. I don't think I would have been the person I am today without the people that I've been part of in the GVDS. I can look easily. I could say that I could be egotistical and say that it was on my own merit and all the work I did and everything I put into it that made me who I am. But to be honest with you, if I wouldn't have ran into people like I have a slot at Keko or like I'm missing names, but I can't tell you their impact in terms of how I have approached facilitation, relating with people, taking perspective and understanding where different people are coming from. Knowing that people have different values and morals that come to the stage and that you have to be aware of those things. For somebody who's very unempathetic, I'm very analytical by nature. Understanding how to bridge that and meet people halfway. I really think that when you talk about harnessing community, what you're really doing is forming a meaningful relationship. If you have if your community can reach you in a very short path, there's not like many hoops that they have to go through to get to you. I think that the impact that they have on you professionally as well as personally is profound. And I can easily say that if I have never done the GBDS experiment, I never would have been half the person I am now professionally and personally.
Goosebumps. I get goosebumps. Thank you for sharing. Douglas, tell us about the way your community impacted your professional life.
You know, it's difficult not just repeating exactly what Robert said. You know, it's like, especially if I roll it all the way back to the Austin CTO group and the CTO summit that we started. I just think of how we all supported each other, and how in some ways it made Austin more resilient and feeling so much more connected to the broader community. You know, it's like our little niche grew and became bold within itself, but then that made us more powerful, maybe, if you will. I don't love that word, but more connected, and we were able to be mighty despite our tiny means. And so, and the same thing for the facilitation community. It's definitely in the transition out of COVID. You know, we were doing monthly meetups where we were rotating around with different guests. A lot of it started out around exploring use cases and learning around design sprints. But then when COVID happened, we were like, oh man, we need to understand this. And the first meetup was called the Future of Facilitation, and there were like 300 people banging on a mural all at the same time. This is before they released their performance update. So you imagine the amounts of learning that was happening. It was just like, what's going on? So I don't know. We all just grew and adapted together, and it's been a fun ride. And it's not a destination; it's a journey. We continue to learn, and we continue to grow. So excited to see where it takes us next.
Thank you, Adam.
+1 everywhere. Just trying to think of some examples for you. I mean, just the way that it's broadened my mindset has been massive. I mean, I remember once, we have a thing at the jams called the Jam Jam, because we get together and we hold a jam, the theme of which is the next jam. So we're jamming the jam. It kind of makes sense if you think about it long enough. And these are absolutely extraordinary events because all the freaks come out. Yeah, all the guys who will literally, this is not good for the planet, but they will fly from Australia for the weekend to take part in this, you know, or they will canoe across the Atlantic to be at this thing. And it is just such high level. And one of the early ones, we said, let's do an experiment. Let's not have us run it, myself and Marcus, my co-founder. Let's invite people to run mini jams, you know, which we would do automatically now. But in those days, it was a big idea, you know. And a Norwegian team said, let us do it, yeah. And now my jams are very high energy and squeaky chicken and loud music and ooh, you know, this kind of stuff. And this Norwegian guy sat us all down on the floor, and I hate sitting on the floor. I'm a big guy. I don't like, you can't get up and down easily, you know, and stuff like this. And he started like telling us this story about soldiers and children, disciplined like soldiers and playful like children. And I was hating it. I'm thinking, you are ruining my jam. You are ruining my baby. Yeah. Mm. And I was just totally wrong. It was absolutely brilliant. You know, 4 hours later, I could see that. And it was the exact opposite of what I would have done at every point. And it was brilliant. And it was still a jam. So there's this whole thing of just getting utterly different perspectives from this community. And I've been jamming in a situation where around the table, there have been government ministers, people you've seen on television, no matter where you are in the world. There have been Australia's biggest farmer. You know, his farm is bigger than some countries. There was a person in the team who was wearing Maasai clothing. He's a Maasai and also has an MBA in the pocket. You know, just incredible people and people with very, very little privilege. People who, you know, who you encounter because the door is open. Some colleagues of mine in Lebanon ran jams during the peak of the refugee crisis on the road, and they had the road opening, and kids were coming in from the sort of stream and spending a few hours doing innovation while fleeing war. You know, and it really gives you a perspective and such an opportunity to learn.
Wow. Thank you. Thank you as well for sharing these examples and have us visualize the impact. Like it's almost tangible. Thank you so much. Daniela.
It's hard to add to what have already been said.
Yes.
So,
if there's anything you would like to add,
I would summarize as harnessing the power of the group, of the people, and making them and helping them to sort of identify what do they want to do, how do they want to learn, and how do they want to work with each other. So broaden horizons and different perspectives. I definitely subscribe that. We see it constantly and we look at it. So from a professional point of view, I think I can say that for all of us in the Facilitator Cafe, it has changed the way we do facilitation. It definitely has changed the way. For me, as an example, I discovered liberating structures in the cafe, and I have consistently applied that. And my delegates, they love it because it helps me, because my personal belief is that people need to own their learning. They need to be the people who decide how to learn, but they also need to identify, and with a group, they need to identify with an idea, and there needs to be collaboration. So all these ingredients are there, and we help each other to bring this forward. And there are so many topics around facilitation that pop up that we discuss. And when people said, I'd really like to learn about, I would really like to know something about it. And someone else pops up, a good friend of mine knows someone who knows someone who knows someone. And off we go. And next week we get a thing on how do you design game-based learning, right? And that's the way it goes. It's non-organic. It's rhizomatic learning, basically. It's, like a carrot, and the carrot has different roots, and it's rhizomatic learning. Everybody learns, and everybody brings different things in, and I find that extremely fascinating. I would hate to miss Mondays. It's not Monday, Bloody Monday. It's finally Happy Monday.
Awesome. That was a strategic decision to place this cool sessions on the Monday, right? Nadia knew what she was doing.
She does. And I tell you, if you look at the chats, I've saved some of the chats, the recurring word is inspiration and inspiring as a feedback.
Well, Monday for the win then. Yay. Thank you so much for sharing. And I have promised our participants the opportunity to ask questions themselves. I mean, I haven't even reached but half of the list of the questions that I have prepared for today, but I am curious to hear if there's anyone in the room who would like to tap into these brilliant minds. And the floor is yours. Just you can ask them anything. Feel free to use the Q reaction button, and then we'll pass you the virtual mic.
While we're waiting for that, I want to show you a thing going through the post today, which is really fun. We tried to write down all the things that we use for facilitation on a piece of paper.
I've seen this, I think, somewhere shared on LinkedIn, Adam, I think.
And if you want one, just ping me. We can get them to you. And it's like everything from room layouts to facilitator status and stuff like that, and we're trying to iterate it, make it better. So check out,
consider yourself pinged by me, please.
Facilitool.com. And you can download a free one, massive PDF, or you can pay a couple of dollars for the postage and we'll send you one.
I'm a fiend for these kinds of things. This table behind you is that's out of focus, is full of this kind of stuff. So
awesome.
I'll add it to the collection.
Please do.
Send them our way. You can always pop links of really awesome things and products and things you guys are putting together to make facilitators' lives easier. Pop them in the chat as well. So while our participants, the guests, are thinking, hey, what questions can we ask? Might I add another question there? And let me go for a tiny spicy one, because I think we've talked a lot about the positivity, the enablement, the learning, the change. I am curious to hear what were some of the challenges you've faced. Was this an easy walking on a pink cloud journey all along? were there some bumps in the road, and what those bumps, and how have you managed them? There we go. Robert, I see 3 fingers. You have the mic.
Yes. The biggest thing for me was taking the expensive habit of the GBDS and turning it into something that was going to be viable for the family. That was the big one. I was going through extreme anxiety, taking something that I offered for free and putting a dollar amount to it. For some people, it didn't matter. They could see the natural transition of that. But for me, I knew instinctively that it was an issue, because even the last free event I had over 350 people at it. 2/3 of that dropped out the last minute because it was something that was free. And it was a lot of management on my time and effort. So I had to square it with not only my own schedule, but also with people who were depending on me to provide. And that was a real struggle for me. I think I struggled with it for at least 4 months before I started experimenting with what would make sense for the community as well as myself. Because one of the things, and this is kind of counterintuitive and probably doesn't go along with what other people think, when you cross the streams of thinking that community is for monetization, then you have a real possibility of poisoning the well. You really should keep your two dimensions of your business and your community separate, so that you are harnessing community for community's sake, and the byproduct of that goodwill, the community will eventually move over into something that may be business related. But I've seen on many occasions where those two unavoidably cross each other in a way that turns off community, because then they don't believe you anymore. So that was a real challenge for me. And I think I got through it okay. But even so, looking back after 6 events, it's still there's some things about it that I'm still not comfortable with.
Thank you for sharing. It's definitely on a lot of people's minds, what comes free, what gets paid, and how that changes the actual dynamics within the community. Yeah. Adam, any challenges on your end, and how have you tackled them?
Well, I had to get over myself a lot, and I need to thank people like Robert for their example in helping me do that, because I was very dogmatic about physicality of facilitation. And I still do believe there are many things that you can't do online that you can do in real space. Sorry, Butter. Yeah. I think you agree with me. It's a different thing, and they can both be awesome. But I was dogmatic about that, and it took Corona to teach me a lesson, and seeing people like Robert doing great work, and it being engaging, and it being fun. Yeah. That was a lesson I had to learn. I'm still lonely. You know, I see dozens of people every week through my screen. But, you know, I say I'm an actor. I'm a stage actor. I don't like film. I don't like cameras. And I've got lots of them right here now. Yeah. So that's still the thing I'm struggling with, you know, but it is important to see that both directions can be enriching for our lives. And that's what we're learning.
Thank you so much for sharing, Adam. Daniela.
Well, the challenge that we have in our facilitators community is actually the question is how can we bring our community forward? Sort of who is responsible for this community? We provide space at the end of the day, but if you don't moderate things, if there is no input, even the most conscientious facilitator and people who have known that, they don't do anything. So there needs to be input. So the question that we have is, we are 4 people right now. We do it on a volunteer basis. And the question that we have is actually, so is it really us who is responsible for this community? And how can we bring and nurture and bring this community forward without changing it too much? Because it works the way it works. At the moment, we've made slight changes that people have not even noticed. But our question is, who is responsible for this community? How do we handle that?
Yeah. When that's distributed and it actually lies on the shoulders of several people or the members itself, right?
Yeah, because obviously money is the third question. Everything's for free. We have people coming in who normally keynote speaking, and they get a lot of money. They do it for free, right? So we have never ever spent a single cent for the moment, and we do not intend to do that. But again, it's how far can that go? How far can that go? What's possible, and what at this stage is how can we imagine our community from here in the future? And especially because every single week, it's not like once a month, once a year. So we have to look at it from a very high frequency in terms of meetings.
Yeah. Yes, thank you for sharing, Daniela. Definitely very interesting. I'm going to look forward to see how your ladies are going to tackle that going forward. Thank you. And Douglas.
Wow. Even just picking one challenge is, there's so many, and it's just a constant, that there's going to be something to address. I think one thing that's really interesting to maybe think about, and there's a few that are kind of interrelated, but one that's top of mind is supporting people at different points in their journey. So when there's a completely new facilitator versus someone who's been around for a while, they have completely different needs, and designing for those needs simultaneously is a non-trivial challenge. And you really have to pay attention to those how the intersections of those needs, and how maybe the advanced person might actually enjoy helping the beginner, because it might actually help them lead to some epiphanies. But they have to be in that learning mindset. And are they there yet? Right. I think other things that I think others might find helpful if they're thinking about this stuff and wanting to lean in to this type of work is around access. And we've run into some really interesting stuff, especially once it became less of an Austin thing and more of a global thing around time zones. Once things went online, Adam's talking about being in front of cameras. There's neurodiversity issues. We've had people attend our events that have can't literally had to request that anyone using virtual backgrounds turn those off, because they it created didn't create great scenario for them and the way they're just in their neurology, I guess, right? And so there are just so many considerations to think about, whether it's the trajectory they're on as far as where they are in their career, their level of facilitation, or even just their own body and their own where they are in that day. So those can pose a lot of degrees of challenges that we have to just consider and lean into.
Yeah, I think it's reassuring in a way to hear familiar challenges. So to see that, we're not alone. I think that everything that you guys have mentioned is like, I can see that. I can see why that's a challenge. So I'm going to open up the mic one last time for anyone in the room who would like to tap into your knowledge and ask a question.
Can we ask each other panelists some questions?
Hey, of course. This is in true spirit of community. Let's let the things emerge.
Douglas Ferguson, if I could, I have a question for you. What do you think is the future of facilitation in regards to community? Do you see it progressing and advancing in the virtual space, or do you see a whole new horizon coming around the corner in 2022? Your thoughts?
Well, it's hard to anticipate exactly when technology is going to drop and how things are going to shift. But, Austin ICU beds were full 2 weeks ago. We're already starting to dip down in the kind of preparedness stages for COVID. So I think we're going to start to see some more in-person events. I mean, it's hard to predict how these variants are developing. But the thing is Pandora's box has been opened. Like, people know what it's like to participate virtually. I don't think budgets are going to completely open up to where it's like, let's just send 20 people to Alexandria, Virginia. It's like 5 people aren't going to be able to come. So now enter hybrid events. our hybrid sessions, and people are throwing around hybrid in so many different ways, and they're really talking about 5-10 different things, and so we're gonna have to get more nuanced about our lives there. But I'm really fascinated by the attention Facebook's spending with their virtual reality meeting software, and it's a high priority for them. And Zoom has already started making announcements around their focus on hybrid support inside the app, and apps like Butter and everyone else is going to be, I think, shifting to meet these new demands. And when they do, it's going to be a whole new frontier for us facilitators to learn the tools, to explore what's possible, and it's going to be a lot of fun. And Adam, we'll still be in front of cameras, but it'll be multifaceted, so it'll be fun.
Brilliant question, Robert. I feel that's like the cherry that was missing on top of the cake, right? Like, what's next for us? What's coming? Daniela, Adam, do you have any take on that? Anything that you say, hey, I have a different opinion on that?
I have a question for Daniela, I think.
Oh, yeah. Go ahead.
So Daniela, you're meeting people from all over the world, and they're all facilitators.
Ooh.
Everything is changing so fast, but what is not changing? What will always stay the same?
Oh, that's a tricky question. Group dynamics is the first thing that comes to my mind. I love the music. I love the music. I would say like Douglas said, from a facilitation point of view, there will be certain different challenges, etc. But I think from a human perspective, everything that has to do with human people, and I'm thinking of group dynamics because we recently had an event where the typical group dynamic popped up, where people sort of, jumped at each other's throat and sort of discussed, and everybody else was sort of trying to do things. So the classical Tuckman, forming, storming, blah, blah, blah. We have gone through that. And I think there are everything that is human, every human characteristic, I think will stay the same, whether you're online or offline, right? So, and I think we will go into diverse ways of facilitating. I was thinking while Robert was asking the question, I have a good friend, she works in a big multinational company. They've just sort of closed their fiscal year a couple of months ago. They have saved 220 million euros because they did not do face-to-face meetings and facilitations. So every controller worth his or her money might take that into consideration. So I think that will probably also look at sort of what kind of requests for what kind of proposals will we get. Not sure I answered your question, though.
I think you did. I think that human side is really important, and it's fun to break it down and see, so what are the bits.
I think it's closeness, the creation of closeness, because people always say, you can't build a relationship online. And I strongly confute that, because I think even in the space of 1 hour, I think I have a kind of relationship with you guys here. Mm-hmm. So you can build relationship.
What you don't know is I'm only 12 centimeters tall.
Is that important to know? Does that affect your brain and the way you think?
If I have to push your car sometime, it might be.
It might, but since if you push my internet connection, it's probably better for me than my car, because that's lousy and I need a better one.
So, any last questions from the panelists to the panelists? I'm super mindful of the time. I would like to thank all of you for being here. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for bringing up the vulnerability. Thank you for sharing your examples, your journey, your lessons learned, the inspiration. And thank you as well to everyone who has joined us and listened in. Wish you a wonderful rest of the day, wherever you are, in the morning, the evening. And I really hope to have the opportunity to chat with you soon and host you in a future event. Thank you so much.
And check out the rest of the rooms that are going on for the conference, because there's more to come. So do see those. To go check those out.
I love it. Thank you so much.
Thanks for hosting us. Thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you, everyone. It was really lovely to be here with you.
Bye. See y'all later.
Bye.